If you're talking to yourself, you have way too much time on your hands. In downhill, I mean, you're going 80 miles an hour. If you're talking to yourself, you're screwed.
Lindsey Vonn, thank you very much for joining us here in Miami. I have to say, Miami, not the most obvious place to find a ski racer. Why are we in Miami?
I'm thawing out. I'm thawing out from all my years of ski racing. I'm finally thawing out.
You're fighting the warmth. Lindsey, take us back to 2002, which was your first Olympics, Salt Lake City. You were already a very decorated skier by that stage. What did it mean skiing in the Olympics for the first time?
When I was 17, going to Salt Lake City, it was right after 9/11. It was this incredibly emotional and unifying moment, I think, for America and for myself. I dreamed about being an Olympian since I met Peekaboo Street when I was 9 years old. And to walk into the stadium at the opening ceremonies was so incredible. I remember my little pink handheld video recorder, like my camcorder, and I just was so overwhelmed with emotion. It was such an incredible experience, and it really set the tone for the Olympics that followed. I think it was probably one of the most emotional experiences of my life outside of winning the games in Vancouver.
Yeah, when you won the gold in Vancouver, when you'd already won so many medals and you had so many trophies in your name, was it different winning a gold at an Olympics?
It was really different. Winning the Olympics is something very special. And, we say, people have told me, once you're an Olympic champion, you're always an Olympic champion. It's a really good feeling, it's kind of that stamp of validation. And it's something that until Vancouver, I really missed. I'd won everything. I'd won world championships and World Cup globes and, all the titles, but I hadn't won the Olympics. And so to be able to do that in North America with the amount of pressure that I had, with the injury that I had leading up to the games, it solidified kind of everything in my career. And it really set the tone for, my, I guess, awareness in the United States, because no one really follows ski racing. And to have won the Olympics in North America was big.
Did it change your life in terms of your celebrity, your access to things, to the way people saw you?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually pretty crazy. I remember coming home from Vancouver and being in the LAX airport, and all of a sudden there was this enormous applause. And I'm like, did like magic walk down? Like, who's here? What's going on? And I look around, everyone's staring at me and applauding me in the terminal. And I was like, this is insane. This is crazy. And I was on Jay Leno's first show back from his hiatus. I had, paparazzi stalking me, and it was like this kind of explosion that I didn't expect, because I'd won 45 or something like that World Cups before the Olympics, but no one cared about what happened before. They only cared that I won Vancouver. So it was crazy. It was really crazy.
When you're going down, when you're racing, take me to that moment, and it's a minute 30 or 2 minutes, depending on the race. What's your ideal frame of mind during that minute 30?
My ideal frame of mind is the same state I was in when I won the Olympics. And I think that was probably the best state of mind I've ever been in my career. It's very hard to repeat. I think routine is something that's really important for athletes, because you want to try to get in the same state of mind to allow you to be, at least from my perspective, I always wanted to be aggressive yet calm, ready and hyper aware, but also relaxed. It's such a contradiction. You want to be all these things at the same time.
So then you're through the starting gate and you're going down. Are you talking to yourself?
If you're talking to yourself, you have way too much time on your hands. In downhill, I mean, you're going 80 miles an hour. If you're talking to yourself, you're screwed.
So what's going through your mind?
I'm literally, it's like hyper speed. I'm looking 2 gates ahead. I've visualized and memorized the course 100 times before I race it, so I know exactly where I want to go. But I'm always looking ahead. I'm searching for speed. It's like I'm in this like time warp, and I'm just focused on the next. How do I get to the next gate faster? It's this like forward drive, and I'm always thinking over here, I'm thinking to myself what I'm doing in the moment, I'm already late.
Can you describe what it feels like to go that fast down a mountain to somebody who's not a skier? What's the closest anyone else comes to that?
I would say when you're not driving, but when you're on the highway as a passenger and you're going, 70 miles an hour, stick your head out the window. And that's when it feels like, except you're in control. You're the one that's, you don't have anything protecting you. You're the one that's bombing down the hill. And I think, again, that's part of the fun of it. I'm going to have this conversation with a lot of Formula One drivers. They always say, oh, Lindsey, your sport is so much more dangerous because you're going those speeds without any protection. I mean, we have a crappy, back protector that pretty much does nothing. And otherwise, it's just our helmet and a skin-tight speed suit.
Like 3 millimeters of
neoprene. Yeah, literally. So when we crashed, it really hurts.
What did the adrenaline do for you?
Adrenaline is kind of like oxygen for me. I need it, and it's actually, I think, the hardest thing for me now in this next chapter of life without ski racing is that I don't have it, and I've had to try to figure out a way to find that excitement and adventure without racing downhill. Adrenaline is something that I feed off of. I love. I need it. It's what gets me going. It's like, I don't know. I need a challenge. I need something to push me. And life without ski racing is pretty boring, to be honest.
To us, it looked from the outside almost easy for you. I mean, you're kind of glamorous and you were winning everything. Do you think people didn't realize how hard it was for you, how hard you worked physically, emotionally, mentally?
I don't think many people in the world really understand what it takes to be at the top of a sport for a long period of time. I mean, Roger Federer was always my inspiration and idol and good friend, but same thing, he makes everything look so easy. He doesn't even sweat when he's on the court.
So annoying.
But it takes hundreds of thousands of hours of training on the court, in the gym, to be able to do what he does and make it look effortless. And it's very similar in skiing. I pride myself in how hard I worked. I was at my prime before my injuries. I was working out 3 times a day, before breakfast, after breakfast, afternoon. My world revolved around how can I be a better and faster athlete? What is it going to take to beat the competition? And when you are number one, it's actually a much harder position to be in because everyone is chasing you and you have to set the tone. And if you stop working hard for 1 second, someone's going to pass you by.
When you started having injuries and crashing, was there any part of your body that didn't feel pain when you were racing?
When I had, I was injured a lot before I had my first surgery. It was a lot of partially torn MCLs and, partially torn ACL. I had a lot of injuries going leading up to that big crash, but it was all manageable. And when I crashed in 2013 and I tore my MCL and my ACL and had that tibial plateau fracture, it was kind of this domino effect where it just set me on a totally different path. And from then on, I have just been playing catch up, trying to keep my body in working order. And it has been a huge challenge. My ribs were popping out because I had all of these different compensations with my hip because of my knee. I can't straighten my knee all the way. There's so many things that I was constantly working on. And I would say it was a major game of whack-a-mole. When I got one thing fixed, something else would pop up. And then I would crash again and something else would happen. And, it was a really long road and it made success very challenging. And I think the front end of my career before my injuries was amazing, but I think what I was able to do after was 10 times harder than what I did before.
A surgeon who looked at the x-rays of your knees said at 35 you had the knees of a 60-year-old. It never occurred to you before that to think, what, my body is telling me I can't do this anymore. Did you resist that feeling of your body saying, Lindsey, time's up?
I generally resist anything that tells me I can't do something. So even if it's my own body, I'm like, you're not going to tell me what to do.
A knee doesn't matter.
But I always knew, it'd come to that. I mean, my dad's had a knee replacement. He was a skier only until he was about 18 years old, and then he became a lawyer. I knew that I would be heading down that path pretty much no matter what I did. So I basically said, hey, I'm going to max my body out. I'm going to do as much as I can with the time that I have. Hopefully medicine will progress and I'll be bionic, before you know it. And I already have had a partial knee replacement, so I'm well on my way to being more bionic. But, life isn't fun unless you take a couple of risks, right? So I don't have any regrets. I maximized what I had, and, I have some aches and pains, but I think everyone does.
You wrote, you'd wanted to be a great skier ever since you wrote that essay when you were 8 years old, saying you wanted to be the greatest skier in the world. But you weren't particularly fast as a child when you were training. And I'm always fascinated by this, people who are great athletes, is it nature or is it nurture, that old question? And you were known as what? A turtle?
Yes.
Which is not massively complimentary to a skier, I'm thinking. It's like,
no,
you'd rather be a leopard
not.
when
yes,
you're skiing.
Exactly.
Did you know you were going to be great? What was it that made you so confident, even at that young age, that you knew this is what you wanted to do?
I don't know. I always loved ski racing. I tried other sports. I was bad at all of them. Gymnastics, horrible. I'm not built to be a gymnast. I tried ice skating. I tried a lot of sports, and my passion was always in skiing. And while I wasn't fast in the beginning, and my coach did call me a turtle and I was made fun of, I loved it. And I just had this goal of making it to the Olympics, and I never lost sight of that. I believed in everything that I was doing, and I think that's rare for a 9-year-old. But my dad always tells a story that, he kind of went along with my goal of the Olympics, but when he saw me training in Mount Hood, it was lightning and raining and the lifts were shut down. Everyone else was inside. I was out there by myself, hiking up the hill, skiing the course down, and hiking back up by myself. And my dad said, maybe she does have what it takes to make it to the Olympics. So I don't know. I've always had the drive. I've always had the passion. I always believed in myself when no one else did. I don't know where that comes from, but it's just something that's always been inside me.
When you were a child and your family moved around a lot to accommodate your skiing, was that another form of pressure for you, knowing that all your siblings and your family were moving out to Colorado? Did that ever weigh on you? Was that something you kind of were conscious of?
I don't think I really grasped the sacrifices that my family was making until everyone moved out to Colorado, and my sister Karen was in middle school and the triplets were in elementary school, and they had a really hard time transitioning. And I knew the financial burden it was putting on my family. We weren't living in remotely the same type of, house we were in Minnesota. It was hard. And I realized that everything was being put on my plate. The hopes and dreams of my family were riding on my shoulders, and I don't think it got to me as in my performance. I think it made me more hyper-focused on working hard and making sure that everything I did was to be successful at ski racing. When there was a party, I had parties in my neighbor's house, 2 doors down. I only went once. It was something that I just didn't do, because I knew that my family was sacrificing everything for me, and I can't let that go to waste. I can't put that in jeopardy by having fun.
Beyond the physical pressure, what was the mental pressure like, being at the top of your game and needing to keep at the top of your game? And do you think that athletes are as prepared for that as they are for the physical side of what they're doing?
I think the mental pressure that athletes have is so much more challenging than the physical pressure. I mean, as athletes, we're always in great shape. I'd be hard pressed to find an athlete that wasn't in prime physical condition. But I think it's the mental aspect that changes everything. Everyone has pressure, but I feel like pressure is a privilege, and it's also my perspective that I think helped me and guided me in my career. And that, I think, comes from my mother. you know, she had a stroke when she had me, and she was physically disabled because of it. She never got to ski with me. She couldn't ride a bike, you know, all the things that mothers do with their kids, you know, my mom really struggled with. And so every time I got injured or I felt this feeling of pressure, I would think, well, you know, my mom never complained. My mom overcame her adversities and she never got the ability to come back from it. And here I am, and I have a great surgeon, a great therapist. I can come back from my adversities, and I should do it with a smile on my face. And I did. And again, like pressure, it's the same thing. If you use pressure to your advantage, that can be a huge driving force, but it's so easy to let it get to you. And especially now with social media, like when I won the Olympics in Vancouver, Facebook was just kind of hitting its prime, and I don't think I was faced with as much criticism as athletes are now. I think later in my career, my personal life became a huge topic of conversation, and that really hurt me personally. But, you know, the amount of pressure that athletes have is quite incredible.
How do you think younger athletes, and I'm thinking, you know, there are teenagers going to the Olympics, right? There are 16-year-olds. How do you think they can prepare themselves? It's interesting what you say about social media. How can they prepare themselves to deal with all of that, to have their life so under a microscope?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I know that the Olympics is working on different AI programs like the IOC, and it will help eliminate that hate speech online, because no athlete, you can say that you're not going to look at your social media during the Olympics, but like, let's be real, it's never going to happen. You know, every athlete is going to look, and all it takes is one comment that you read that will just play in your head over and over again. It's happened to me many times.
Where something will have come up on social media and it will impact your physical performance.
It just gets in your head, you know, you're not good enough, you're too old, you're washed up, you know, all those things, especially towards the end of my career, where it was hard. It became harder to block out that noise. And it's hard to teach a 17-year-old, you know, going to the Olympics for the first time, hey, you have to compartmentalize this, you know, you can't let it affect you. It's a lot easier said than done. So I think, you know, having resources for young athletes is really important. Having, you know, a therapist on hand so that they have someone to talk to. A lot of times, you know, for me, I had depression, and I never told anyone until I was in my mid-20s, and I had it, you know, when I was a teenager, because I didn't really have those resources. I didn't feel like I had anyone to talk to. And I think with social media, it's so much more important now to have those resources for athletes and for kids, for that matter. Someone that they can talk to, an unbiased opinion, or just someone they can vent to.
In 2019, when you retired, you said you were scared that you wouldn't find something, you know, what were you going to fill the hole from skiing, that you wouldn't find something you loved as much? Has the process of leaving professional skiing behind been what you expected it to be?
I think it's harder than I expected it to be.
And you expected it to be hard.
I expected it to be hard, but it's still hard. You know, it's been, 5 years, and there's nothing, I've realized that there's nothing that's going to fill the hole of ski racing. I'm never going to go 85 miles an hour again. But things like, you know, for example, Red Bull did this really cool thing with me where I got to ski Kitzbühel, which is the hardest men's track in the world. And I'd always wanted to ski against the men when I was competing, but never got the chance. And I got to go fast again. I got to ski on the hardest course in the world, and I was so happy. It made me so, like, to my core, it made me so happy. And then I got done with it, and I'm like, okay, I'm back to not doing this anymore. And it was almost, I think, one of the worst things for me, because I got a sprinkle of what I used to have, and I don't have that anymore. And I'll never have that, and that's really hard. Like, that's just not something that goes away easily.
So what does skiing mean for you when it's not in Kitzbühel on the men's course? What does skiing mean for you today?
Today,
what part of your life is it?
Today skiing is like it was when I was a kid. You know, I love being on the mountain with my family, with my friends. I got to go skiing with my dad this winter, and I had so much fun. He still refuses to listen to me and wear a helmet, but that's another issue. But I love experiencing skiing with people. You know, I love seeing other people enjoy the mountain the way I enjoy the mountain. You know, I always tell my friends, it doesn't matter how good you are. You know, a lot of my friends get nervous about skiing with me, and I'm like, I'm not competing with you. Trust me, I would win. We're just out here to have fun, you know. And I had that same experience when I was a kid, and that's what drew me to the sport. And it's different, but you know, I still love it.
These machines look vaguely like sort of torture machines.
Oh, they're great. It's,
yeah.
You know, you got the rope pulls,
Right.
the butt exercises, you know. You start with no weight.
And does it give you a sense of satisfaction still? Do you still,
So,
just being physically strong gives you some of that?
It's not so much being physically strong, it's I need to accomplish something.
Right.
You know, in ski racing or in any sport, you know, you work hard, you have a result. You know, you're getting faster in your sport, you're getting better, you're getting stronger. I don't have that type of sense of accomplishment in business. You know, I'm making investments. I don't know if my investment's going to pay off in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. I need something that is giving me a response right away. And when I work out in the gym, I feel like I'm getting stronger. I accomplished something. I feel good about myself. I've let out energy. I've been focused. You know, it's like my meditation. So it's kind of a lot of things.
Do you think there's going to be a time where your body feels like a kind of age-appropriate body? I mean, do you think your body's ever going to be fully recovered from what you've put it through?
I just have to be smart and, you know, use resources I have to recover and to try to slow down the aging process as much as possible. Because if my knees are already 50 or 60 years old, I'm kind of screwed.
And I'm speaking to you, and you've just recently had another knee surgery.
But it feels great. I mean, I feel like a new woman. I mean,
Bring
I got
on the
titanium
surgery.
in there, you know. It's like,
Yeah, you're bionic at this point.
I've got titanium in my arm. I got titanium in my knee. You know, I got 2 more joints that need titanium. But you know, like I'm ready for it. I have no fear of surgery, so I'm not nervous about what surgeries I will need. I know I will need more. I know I'll need a full knee replacement on both sides. There's so much I can do now to help myself recover. As long as I stay strong and fit and keep that active lifestyle, that's what's going to keep me young.
Keep working out in the gym.
Exactly.
No days off. Thank you.